The sting very clearly is in the tail. Like Tahavur Hussain Rana, whatever it takes, it may take time, but India will go after the perpetrators of terror. That's the government's resolve announced by Vikram Misri, the Foreign Secretary of India. Sushant Sareen is Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, stays with me on this broadcast. Arzu Kazmi joins us from Pakistan. Colonel Rohit Dev joins me on this India Today special broadcast. And Sushant Sareen, I want to understand from you, when you hear the Foreign Secretary, you know a series of steps that have been taken. But the fact that Pakistan continues to bleed us, the fact that Asim Munir behaves more like a Hafiz Saeed in military uniform, is it time for India to take harder and harsher steps, whether directly or indirectly, overt or covert, to hurt Pakistan's military jihad infrastructure?
Gaurav, I think that's a no-brainer, but I also think that the measures which have been announced today is only the first series of steps that India is likely to take. I would imagine there would be other steps to follow, not just at the diplomatic level, not just at the economic level, but maybe there will be, and I suspect there is all likelihood that there will be kinetic action as well that will be taken to punish Pakistan. But my only counsel, for whatever it is worth, is that if we are going to be taking kinetic action, then I think we need to be prepared for a larger conflagration.
Okay.
Simply because, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because look, whether we like it or not, uh, if we have suspended or put in abeyance, which for all practical purposes means that we are not going to be observing the Indus Waters Treaty anymore, that in many senses is a kind of a declaration of war for Pakistan, because they can't survive without the water. Even the prospect that India might be now violating the treaty and impounding their water will be extremely painful for them. So for we should be prepared that if we are going to be taking kinetic action, then the Pakistani retaliation will definitely come, and they would be ready to go out, perhaps even for an all-out war. Now, I think we need to be prepared for that. Maybe that's a bit of a, maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe the Pakistanis don't have the wherewithal, because their former general, Bajwa, was heard telling Pakistani journalists that the Pakistani military preparedness leaves a lot to be desired. They don't have fuel for their tanks are rusting, etc., etc. So there, I'm not privy to what is the exact state of the Pakistan army, how much they can extend a conflict with India. But I think we need to be prepared for it. So I don't think getting into any kinetic action without having gamed all the consequences and the escalation ladders, and the fact that we'll need to dominate the escalation ladders. Because if we do something, the Pakistanis do something, and then we don't, go up the escalation ladder, then I think we have lost the plot. So we need to be.
Let me bring in Arzu Kazmi from Pakistan before I bring in Colonel Dev. Arzu, Pakistan में इंडस वाटर्स ट्रीटी अगर भारत उस पर रोक भी लगाता है, मतलब उसको हेल्ड इन अबेयंस कहता है कि हम अभी इस पर अंकुश लगा रहे हैं, रोक लगा रहे हैं, इसका पाकिस्तान के पंजाब सूबे पर या सिंध सूबे पर क्या असर पड़ेगा?
देखिए, डेफिनेटली असर तो पड़ेगा, इसलिए कि अगर पानी आप लोग रोक देंगे तो आप जानते ही हैं कि इस वक्त सिंध की तरफ से ये 6 नहरें निकालने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। उसी के ऊपर प्रोटेस्ट चल रहा है सिंध के अंदर, और वो यहाँ पर पंजाब में लाई जा रही है, बिकॉज पंजाब में ग्रीन पंजाब के नाम से जो ग्रीन पाकिस्तान के नाम से सॉरी जो प्रोजेक्ट है उसमें वो चाहिए, और वो प्रोजेक्ट जो है वो हमारे आर्म फोर्सेस वालों का ही है। वो जमीनें जो हैं वो कहा यही जा रहा है कि फौजियों की हैं, तो उधर तक लाने के लिए कोशिश की जा रही है, जिसके लिए पूरा सिंध इस वक्त जो है वो प्रोटेस्ट कर रहा है और ये सब चल रहा है। तो डेफिनेटली फर्क तो पड़ेगा, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ आप लोगों ने ऐसा करके और बहुत जल्दबाजी में, मुझे लगता है ऐसा जो स्टेप लिया गया है वो करके आपने एक तरह से मदद ही कर दी है इन लोगों की, क्योंकि ये लोग चाह रहे थे कि बलूचिस्तान और केपीके और सिंध से अटेंशन डाइवर्ट कराई जाए, और क्योंकि बार बार यहाँ पे जो एक्टिविस्ट और जर्नलिस्ट हैं वो मुसलसल बात कर रहे हैं, और जो कुछ हो रहा था, अब सबकी तवज्जो पूरी तरीके से, सबकी टेंशन जो है वो भारत की तरफ चली जाएगी, और ऐसा लगेगा कि अगर कुछ टाइम के बाद सब कुछ ठीक हो गया तो इन्हें एक बार फिर क्रेडिट मिल जाएगा कि 9 मई के बाद इन्होंने
कुछ टाइम के बाद सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा। आरजू, क्योंकि सिंध और बलूचिस्तान और खैबर पख्तूनख्वा तो आपका काफी समय से जल रहा है, ऐसा
नहीं
हमने
नहीं
सुना है, ऐसा हमने
मैं
देखा है। और
मैं
ये
से
किसने कहा कि वहां पर आग लगनी बंद हो जाएगी?
नहीं
वहां पर
नहीं
जो आग
गौरव
लग रही है कर्नल देव, वो आग
गौरव
तो मैंने सुना इस तरह से है कि वहां के लोग तो वो आग और भड़काना चाहते हैं।
गौरव जस्ट गिव मी 1 सेकेंड। मैं
ओके,
ये नहीं
Yeah,
कह
please
रही
ठीक
हूँ
है,
कि
let the
ठीक
lady
है,
finish.
नहीं नहीं,
या
मैं ये नहीं कह रही कि बलूचिस्तान और केपीके सही हो जाएगा। ये होगा कि वहां से अटेंशन डाइवर्ट हो जाएगी और सबके सब सिर्फ भारत की बात करने लगेंगे। ये मैं कह रही हूँ कि ये इनके लिए अच्छा हो जाएगा कि लोग वहां की बात करना छोड़ देंगे और सबको ऐसा लगेगा, और कुछ
अब आप
टाइम के बाद जब
पाकिस्तान
आपके
आर्मी के
साथ
लिए
टर्म
कुछ
ठीक
अच्छा
होंगे।
नहीं। एक बात मैं आपको केवल बतौर एक पत्रकार बता देता हूं, जो काफी समय से इस सरकार को रिपोर्ट करता हूं, इस सरकार पर और पाकिस्तान के आतंकवाद पर रिपोर्ट करता हूं दशकों से। मैं आपको एक बात बता सकता हूं, पाकिस्तान आर्मी के अच्छे दिन खत्म, पाकिस्तान आर्मी के बुरे दिन शुरू होंगे। जिस तरह से पाकिस्तान की आर्मी ने बेगुनाहों को मारा है भारत में, उसके अच्छे दिन खत्म। बट कर्नल रोहित देव, is
Yes.
my thinking on the right lines that the trouble for Pakistan is only set to intensify, given the fact that General Asim Munir, for his own survival, has put Pakistan in peril with this Indus Waters Treaty now being held in abeyance? There will be questions that will be asked: is Pakistan army more important or the people of Pakistan?
See, Gaurav, God provides solace to the souls who have gone. Let's just be very, very thankful to terrorist Munir and terrorist Sebaz Sharif. And I said with a lot of concern, these jokers have handed over to us the mandate to do what we want. And this opportunity, I mean, person like me was seeking it for the last 4, 5, 6 years because they were playing it under the radar. And it was very important for this to happen. And I'm glad it has happened when geopolitically we hold all the chips. There can be some murmur here and there of a BBC-like transmission, but country-wise, geopolitically, India has gained. Between the last 24 hours, our Prime Minister going and coming back from Saudi Arabia, I think we have garnered all the support we need geopolitically. Now we will tell these steps we will take geopolitically beyond this. And like Sushant said, economically and geopolitically, something we will push the pedal through and through to define the poverty of Pakistan to the next level. Militarily, I'm
Yes.
afraid you are absolutely right. I mean, let's not talk what's going to happen, and it's not going to happen in any haste this time. And contrary to the nuclear bogey of Pakistan, which we have heard all our lives, contrary to the newly Christian escalation matrices in our war rooms, Pakistan, I'm very happy to say it doesn't have war capability of more than 3.5 days. So
No, and
they
that
can
very
look,
pertinent point,
they can look
since
within,
you,
they can look within,
yes,
they
no, you're
can look
absolutely right.
within,
You're absolutely right. And I want to
and they
bring in
can
Sushant
decide.
Sareen on this point. Sushant Sareen, when you talk of the escalation ladder and the nuclear bogey, look, Pakistan floats a nuclear bogey, and there is a Pakistani ecosystem in India that also does a lot of breastbeating on that nuclear bogey. Some of those Ghulam Nabi 5 sponsored ecosystem, because I want to ask you, 1998 nuclear tests happened, 99 Kargil war happened, it didn't even escalate beyond the Kargil theater. There wasn't even a full-scale war. There was a conflict in Kargil under the nuclear umbrella. It didn't escalate to a nuclear war. Pulwama, Pathankot, surgical strike, air strike, it didn't escalate to a full-blown war, let alone a nuclear bogey. So Pakistan's nuclear bogey, there are no takers under that nuclear umbrella and the threshold. India can punish Pakistan enough, can't we, Sushant Sareen?
Yeah, look, Gaurav, at one level you're right. But, we also cannot ignore the fact that we will be operating under a nuclear hangover. Uh, and I think we need to be prepared and we need to warn the other side that any kind of nuclear adventurism or any kind of a threat from them, which is perceived to be a real one, uh, will lead to an immediate response from the Indian side, because I think the Indian doctrine has been tweaked over the years,
Yes.
Absolutely.
point where if we feel that there is likely to be an attack on us, it will be construed to be an attack, which means that we will use it first before we will have the doctrine of
But
preemption.
yeah, while I want everybody to know that, my limited point is there is enough to punish Pakistan without escalating even to a full-blown war, and you're on top of that escalation ladder. That's my limited point, because from Ek Pataka to the nuclear attack, everyone in one breath goes up the ladder. Sushant, quickly, sir.
Gaurav, that's a call that the Pakistanis will have to make. India will do what India needs to do. But what I'm saying is that you cannot operate on that assumption that the Pakistanis will only go up to such and such level and they will not go beyond. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. If they don't, fine. If they do, then you have to be prepared to go down to that level, right? At that point of time, you can't say, "Oh shit, I didn't think this would happen." So I think
No,
we need to keep our powder dry. We need to be prepared for it. We need to send the messaging correctly that you try anything like this and we launch. Okay. And then you can do whatever the hell you want to do. But you cannot operate on the assumption this will not happen. I think that would be a blunder in my
no,
in my
sure, but my limited point, and we'll have that discussion offline again, that to get to that nuclear threshold, there are several levels to be crossed, and that's the point Indians and generally must appreciate, that it's not as if one surgical
Gaurav,
strike escalates to a nuclear war. That's the point I'm
Gaurav,
trying to make.
Gaurav,
Okay, come in, Colonel Dev. Yes.
Gaurav, just two quick points. The difference in what we are alluding to is as on date and the hour and going into the future for at least next 3 to 4 years, that's our window. The Americans are with Bharat. They are totally against Pakistan, its proxies and funding agencies and people anywhere on earth. That is the first part we must realize that is why this nuclear bogey is super bogus currently. The second is a very good master stroke geopolitically to test waters with China. China is in a trade war with US. India has been a good, sort of a partner there and behind closed doors with Piyush Goyal and others going there as well. And I see this held in abeyance as a testing waters and the limits of
Okay.
where the Chinese would go. So keep an eye on Tibet as well. Keep an eye on China as well. And that is where, so if we make the right noises in terms of the trade, war adjustment, alignments, and if we can isolate Pakistan on this, I think that is the game changer going forward, that how much China is unwilling to support Pakistan further. That is the question which is going to be
That's a
created.
pertinent point, and I want to bring in Sushant Sareen once again. Can Pakistan rely on China the way it has in the past, and China held Pakistan's hand even in the United Nations, ensuring that terrorists are not blocked at the United Nations Security Council till almost for many years? Can Pakistan continue to bank on China?
I think the expectation will certainly be there. Please remember that on multiple occasions when the Chinese and Pakistanis have met at the summit level, statements have been issued that Pakistan's enemies are China's enemies and China's enemies are Pakistan's enemies, or for that matter, that Pakistan's security is China's security. Stuff like that has been said. Now, I'm not saying that this means that a second front will open immediately. I would have suspected that if a front was to open with China, the expectation for the Chinese would be that the Pakistanis would open another front against India. Will the Chinese want to open a front against India at a time when the Pakistanis want to do it? And then does this lead to a kind of a wider conflict which pulls in certain other countries? Are the Chinese wanting to go down that road at this point in time, given the international flux that is taking place? I would have some doubts on that. But again, like I said, war is extremely serious business. You cannot get into a war-like situation or even take actions which could lead to a possible conflagration or a wider conflagration based on assumptions which may not hold. Okay, so you have to be prepared for the worst-case scenarios, and then go ahead and kick the other guy's butt as much as you want to. But
And perhaps you don't even need to do it yourself. There are, many within Pakistan who want to sort Asim Munir out. They almost did. Imran Khan has survived just by the skin of his teeth. He's in jail. But Sushant Sareen, before I bring in Colonel Dev, there are many in Pakistan who say either Asim Munir survives or Imran Khan survives. And when Asim Munir is cornered, can Imran Khan or Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf do anything? Or he has successfully pushed them to a corner, especially after the action that has been taken by the Pakistan army, police, courts, and now everyone does a sajda to Asim Munir, and Imran Khan is now, his days are numbered.
no, look, as things exist, perhaps Imran Khan's days are going to be difficult in the foreseeable future. But look, things can change, because if there is a sense in the Pakistan army that the decisions taken by the cabal, which is run by Asim Munir and company, has actually damaged Pakistan grievously, and that they need to do something about it. They need to back down from the kind of confrontation they've gotten into in Balochistan, in Sindh, against India, on a range of other issues. Politically, there is a lot of unrest happening, and the economy remains weak. Can you fight a war on an empty treasury? I think that is a
Absolutely.
Pakistanis need to ask themselves. And maybe there would be people in the Pakistan military and the Pakistani establishment who think that Asim Munir and his stupidity has pushed Pakistan into a situation where there are no easy ways out for them. He is literally playing with the future of Pakistan and with the existence of Pakistan. Now, maybe that pressure can be created, and then within the institution, there could be issues which erupt, and there'll be pressure on
Okay.
Asim Munir to step aside. Will that lead to Imran Khan coming back, or some kind of another political arrangement we worked out? I don't know, but I don't see Imran Khan uh, giving or allowing anybody else to come into play if Asim Munir is out, because look, he will very legitimately claim victory. So I think that initial question you asked, that is either Asim Munir or Imran Khan, and frankly speaking, neither of them is good for us.
Oh, absolutely. But lesser of the two evils is Imran Khan. Lesser of the two evils is my limited point. But the point that Sushant Sareen very rightly raised, Colonel Dev, Pakistan is going from one country to the other with a begging bowl. They have enough money for the army, but then the country is going around with a begging bowl. In this situation, Asim Munir uses his jihadi mindset to send terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir. What is his thinking? Does he think that he'll unite Pakistan behind him, he'll rally Pakistan behind him, or it's a very dangerous gamble, because this could actually mean more trouble for Pakistani people and perhaps even Asim Munir in the days and months ahead?
See, the Gaurav, the mistake which has been made is that General Munir cannot even take a military train through parts of Pakistan without getting hit and bombed. But that is why that General Munir thought that he will transform now into a terrorist Munir and probably play the Kashmir card. He doesn't even know. You read from the State Department to the leaders of US and even sensible leaders like Keir Starmer today. Nobody's calling it Indian occupied Kashmir anymore except the BBC, right? So he should have seen it on the wall. I mean, a person so incompetent just thought that he's living in some 70s, 90s where he can stir up something about Kashmir
Yes.
and become famous. That's not the case. Now, the bigger point is you have a journalist here by the name of Arzu. You have very sane minds in Pakistan, the youth with aspirations. What have they got? I think they are going to ask their government very soon and their generals and the terrorists there that why are you bombing civilians in India? What are you achieving? Because you're getting no net effect
You
for
may
the
have
growth of
faith. I
Pakistan.
don't. I
Right? No,
have
no, no,
heard
no,
this,
no.
Colonel
That's
Dev.
the card. No, no, no. That's the card we are using very well to feed that information from quarters possible. So I'm not saying you're going to do it. I'm going to say
No,
they are going to
I have
do it
no faith
onto
in even the
themselves.
Awam of Pakistan.
Oh, that's okay.
No, no, 50
See,
shades of Hafiz Saeed, sir,
I
50
understand
shades
that.
of Hafiz
I
Saeed.
understand that. But
No
realize
new
in
generation.
the
One
no,
jihadi is
no.
as bad as another jihadi.
That's okay. I agree. See,
One
see,
may
see,
be a
see.
polished
Gaurav,
Sushant
Gaurav,
Sareen.
Gaurav,
Okay.
Gaurav, look at our country, a population of 150 billion, but at least I can say there are 150 Bs at the topmost level who want our country down and begging, right? We only have to create, say, 14,000, 1,40,000 there. That's not a problem.
Yeah, but I want to understand, because Sushant Sarin, you track Pakistan so closely. My appreciation, and I've been covering the situation since the Kargil war, the Parliament attack, Red Fort attack, J&K Assembly attack, Pulwama, Pathankot, Akshardham, 26/11, all the attacks that have taken place. Apart from lip sympathy, we've got nothing more from Pakistanis, educated, uneducated, they're diplomats, they're top diplomats, suave ones, illiterate ones. Aren't they all most 50 shades of Hafiz Saeed?
Yeah, I'm afraid I cannot agree with what Colonel Dev is saying, and I have absolutely no hesitation in saying that I consider all of them as an enemy. I think this distinction which we draw between state and society is a fiction that we have started believing in ourselves. The society is just as bad and radicalized and suffering from Hindu misia or Hindu phobia, whatever you want to call it, as the state is. And India is the eternal enemy. The Hindu is the eternal enemy, a civilizational enemy. I think we should not kid ourselves that the Pakistani people will say, "Why are you going and killing?" They would be very happy if you're going and killing Hindus. The problem for them is going to be that the pushback which is coming is actually going to start destroying their lives and livelihoods, and there is a big mess already within their own country. That will be the factor that will propel them, if at all, to take any action or demand some action from the junta which is ruling over them.
The
Not this.
I
junta
think,
that rules
I
Pakistan.
think, I think, Gaurav, we are talking the same thing. I think you missed my
Absolutely.
point.
No,
You
I
missed
got
my
your
point.
point.
What I was saying was that the poverty level and Pakistan going into an abyss will be the calling between their, junta and their state to question the state at some point of time that what has your Kashmir mission, killing of innocents across, got
वो
us.
सुबह
That was
कभी
the
तो
point I was
आएगी
making. Yeah,
वो
yeah, no, no, no,
सुबह
no.
कभी तो
सुबह नहीं
आएगी
आएगी.
because वो
सुबह नहीं
trust
आएगी.
me, it is Ghazwa Hind, that
Yeah,
mindset
yeah.
when that child is in the mother's
I'm
womb in
not even
Pakistan.
contesting that.
You know,
अरे
that
यार
child in the
गौरव
mother's womb is taught Ghazwa Hind. They're
गौरव
born and
गौरव
they die with that concept of Ghazwa Hind. And I want every Indian to please realize this, that that mindset of waging war against Hindus, defeating Hindus, converting Hindus to Islam, that's the only mindset those chaps work with. Whether they're in Pakistan army or they're terrorists or, you know, they may be masquerading as civil society, many of them, but unfortunately their mindset to a very large extent remains the same. Just scratch beneath the surface and the real Pakistani emerges. But, well, you may have had a better experience. I would hope to have that better experience. But my experience has only been very bad dealing with such elements. But we'll track that story closely. We have an open mind. We will deal with it and we hope for a brighter future. To my guests, many thanks for joining me.